With today being Jackie Robinson Day, USA Today Sports posted some interesting stats showing the lack of African-American representation in Major League Baseball. The stats show that only 8% of MLB players are African-American and only 3.1% are pitchers, just 14 pitchers, and only 7 starters are African-American. This is unbelievable. One of those pitchers is the Rays' Chris Archer, who had this to say on this subject. People don't really view athleticism transcending onto the pitcher's mound as you would an outfielder or a shortstop. You just don't think of it as an athletic thing to do. It's really the last choice of parents. Jared, why do you think there's so few African-American pitchers in Major League Baseball right now? This
is a great question. It took me a while really to think about it. First thing comes to mind when it comes to the black community, it's not the cool thing. When it comes to, you see Kobe in '62, you see Cam Newton in how he's portrayed. I would say this also, basketball now is a year-round sport. So AAU basketball is so big, it goes to the summer, so the conflict of interest when going in, you have a baseball game, basketball game, so that. Second thing that I would say when it comes to this is the financial game. When it comes to financially, obviously baseball in the long term makes a lot of money, but when you come a #1 pick in basketball, 18, 19 years old, you get the guarantee money right away. You get the endorsement deals. Obviously, football, they have their money when it comes slated from 1 to 30. In baseball, you could be the #1 pick, and you still might not even make it to the major leagues. You got to go to, single A, double A, triple A. And then the last thing I thought about was growing up is playing. What did you play growing up? You buy a basketball, you can go to the gym and play. Football, you had your boys, you play 4-on-4 with an all-time quarterback. In baseball, you have a batting cage, you have to find a catcher, you can work on your pitching, but the sandlot days growing up, I mean, they're really so far and few.
Well, for me, in my era, I actually played baseball. I can remember trading the baseball cards. Now, a reason for that was, and you mentioned it, football wasn't year-round. There was no Pop Warner football when I grew up. So you just kind of, as the seasons changed, you changed as an athlete.
Right.
You used to say football, okay. You went basketball, okay, and then it was baseball. And soccer was like, oh, that's like, what is that? I remember soccer coming in here and it was like, oh, don't play soccer. Okay, so it's kind of funny. You go through generations of kids, but when you look at it now, I just think that when you look at football and basketball, it's really become TV. And if kids watch TV anymore, they don't watch TV, they watch their phones. Every kid got a phone. Yeah. I mean, you're going to watch highlights more of basketball or football. I mean, baseball is kind of like, it's not, when you're a young kid anymore, you don't view baseball in our community as much as you do basketball and football because that's all you ever see. That's all we talk about. I mean, all our shows, we talk about football all year round. Yeah. We really do. I mean, we talk about basketball. I mean,
NFL is king, and then I would say NBA is.
Yeah, and baseball is there, and I think baseball is exciting when it gets into the playoffs, into the World Series. And I think what happens with baseball, they play so many games that you don't have to keep up with it early. You can just kind of wait. Say, well, I'll wait for about 60 games go by, and then it gets interesting. But I just think it's just one of those deals where now kids grow up and it's a game that obviously it's not a fast-moving game by any stretch of the imagination. And we're in a world now, everything's instant. You want information. You want to see it. You want to see scoring. We're in that kind of world. So I just think that's how the generations have changed, in my opinion.
Fascinating question. I've thought a lot about this for many years because I grew up in the golden age of the black baseball player.
Yeah.
My favorite baseball player growing up was Bob Gibson. And if you've never heard of him, Google him, please.
Yeah, Google him.
Just Google him.
Bob Gibson.
Bob Gibson was a dominating black pitcher for my St. Louis Cardinals that were my favorite team growing up. And there were lots of great black pitchers in the era. Ferguson Jenkins led to Dwight Gooden, obviously, Vida Blue. We can go on and on and on. But in those days, baseball was the national pastime. The NFL was just getting a foothold because college football was still a little bigger than the NFL was. It was just starting to come. And the NBA wasn't much at all. College basketball was much bigger than the NBA. So there was no dominating pro sport. Like the NBA felt like a minor sport when I was a kid, a minor sport. Right. And now it's starting to rival the NFL in star power. And we tend to talk on this show NBA. We can do 365 days NBA on this show.
Yes.
And I'm happy with it. So to me, slowly but surely, it became clear to black kids, and I can't speak for them, but I've heard this, we've had this discussion dozens of times on the show, but to your cool point, it was much more fun to play basketball or football, just more fun. It's a faster game. It's easier to play with your friends because you don't need a lot of equipment. And baseball became apparent to most black kids is a hard road to stardom. It's a hard, long road. And if you get drafted #1 overall in baseball as a high school kid, nobody's going to know who you are, really, except your hometown and your home area will know who you are. But you're not celebrated the way we just celebrated Ezekiel Elliott.
Right.
We're not going to have you in to first take before your draft. We're not going to know who you are. Even if you go to college, we won't really know who you are. We might have seen you play in the College World Series, but we're not going to have you on first take. So then you're going to have to go to the minor leagues. And it might take you 4, 5, 6 years to get to stardom. Now, once you reach stardom, and may I throw this out?
Oh, boy.
David Price from my school, Vanderbilt University. Now, he went to college for 3 years. Then he got drafted and had immediate impact with a franchise in Tampa that needed immediate impact. But he was able to pitch in relief right away in the World Series. He was 23 years old by that point. He is making this year for the Boston Red Sox $30 million. That's beyond Kobe money. That's beyond any NBA money. That's way beyond any NFL money. $30 million. He's the second highest paid baseball player this year in the MLB to Clayton Kershaw, who's $32 million. Another pitcher, white pitcher, but who cares? You know, my point is, if you can pitch, you can pitch.
Oh, yeah.
And they are going to want you to pitch. You read the quote from David Archer. It took him a while. He didn't make it till he was 24 years old. He had to go through 7 years in the minor leagues. He is a stud and a star, and he's going to make a ton of money. We've seen CeCe Sabathia make a ton of money straight out of high school. He was in the big leagues at age 20. Is it rare? It's doable. And whether we've gone round and round, I want to just bring this up just for the record. We've had many of our debaters here who have suggested there is some racism operating in Major League Baseball against black players. I don't know. I just want to declare this, that it could be some underlying. We now have 3 teams in the big leagues this year with 0 black players. Right. Well, is it because they don't want black players? I find that impossible. If they can play, obviously, I would think they would want them. Is it harder for the black baseball player to come up? Fighting against the Latin players who might be cheaper to sign early on, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, the Latin players, I mean, in a lot of senses, that's their way out. And they know it. And they start when they're playing baseball when they're 8 years old. I mean, they love baseball. I mean, that's kind of their sport. Yeah, it's a culture, so that's okay.
You don't have football or basketball as your way out of those cultures.
That's exactly
so to me, I don't know about that. I want to acknowledge it for the record, but I also want to say that I believe in the end that most black kids baseball's boring. It is. I played it when I was a kid. It's slow, man. It's tedious.
Slow.
And it got slower and slower. They're trying to speed it up. Yeah. But there are times when I think baseball is just dying in popularity.
Right. And, you know, the thing about baseball now, if you're a pitcher, then you're in the game. But if you think about it, when young kids, most young kids can't hit. So if it's a good pitcher on the mound, you play any other position but beside catcher, you're never going to see the ball. They throw it around when you strike the guy out around the baseball. Hum, hum, baby. Okay, but it's the pitcher. It's the pitcher and the catcher.
Yeah.
I mean, so there lies the problem. You're standing out in the field for like 3 innings, you never get a ball. It's like, come on, I want some action.
But that's why every kid growing up wanted to play shortstop or center field, because that was the action, your athleticism. And as a pitcher, I mean, you always hear about when people having surgeries, Tommy John. You always heard that you wanted to save your arm, so
that's true.
You never wanted to stay away from that position.
Okay, but David Price is making $30 million, and he only has to perform every 5th day. So he gets 4 days off. How would you like that? You play one game and you get to sit 4, right? Play one, sit 4.
Pitcher like in football is the quarterback, right? You get a good guy on the hill. You got a chance to win a lot of games.
Okay, but a lot of kids might look at a pitcher as kind of a boring position because you don't get to play every day.
Right,
you know?
Definitely.
So I get it. It's not shocking to me, but the stats are shocking that we're now down to 1.8%.
That's not very much.
Yeah.
And again, today, Jackie Robinson Day, 69 years ago, he made his Major League debut, breaking down the color barrier and transcending sports. So we honor and commemorate him today.
Yes, we do.
Everyone will be wearing 42, his retired jersey,
right.
the baseball park, so it's really special. Up next, we switch gears. Since 1997, Skip and America's team has been the definition of mediocre. 152 and 152.
What?
How about that?
That's rough.
How about them Cowboys?
Struggle is real. Herm, what's happening next year? We're going to get into this. Sorry, Skip.